Hi everyone, I'm Dr. D. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. A week ago I did a video on dissociation as defense, explaining how it may manifest while you're struggling with gender dysphoria. And in that video I mentioned that I'm going to do a part 2, sharing how this defense can actually follow you post-transition, whatever the transition is for you, how it manifests, and why it is actually harmful to you. So again, I'm not talking about dissociative identity disorder or any kind of disorders. I'm talking about the defense, the psychological defense mechanisms we tend to employ in order to deal with trauma, with stress, with anything that tends to feel psychologically overwhelming for us. In this case, I'm talking about dissociation. And if you want to get to know what that is much more in detail and how it manifests, I recommend for you to watch that video. So some people tend to ask me, why is it that now that I have completed or finished transition, again, whatever that is for you, or why is it now when I do feel congruent and comfortable with myself and comfortable with my body and comfortable with my gender, why am I still dissociating? Why am I still having those out-of-body experiences? Why am I still spaced out when I'm around my loved ones? Why am I still daydreaming? Why am I still sometimes lose track of time and feel like I completely black out? In other words, why do I keep utilizing the defense when I'm no longer dealing with severe gender dysphoria for which I actually used the defense in the past? And that's a very valid question, right? Why is it that some of you still dissociate even though you don't feel severe dysphoria, even though you feel so much more comfortable, and some of you feel incredibly comfortable and incredibly congruent? So why is it that some of you still dissociating post-transition or post-achieving that congruency, I should say? Well, defenses, remember how I said in that video, defenses all start out of as being adaptive, meaning they're helpful. They're there to help us to cope with very difficult events in our lives. And adaptive is only the starting point. It's very quickly the defenses become maladaptive and no longer serving us. What's more, we're human beings. We get habituated to things all of the time. We get habituated to things that are healthy, and we get habituated to things that are not healthy for us. Look at some of the coping things you did to deal with dysphoria, other than dissociating. Drinking, for example. We get habituated to drinking, and then it becomes really difficult to break the habit. Or maybe overeating was your defense, or maybe you utilize some other things, some other coping things to not think or deal with depression. Chances are those habits, they become part of our identity until we modify them and therefore reshape our identity. Essentially, that's what habits are. You do them long enough, consistently enough, where you get to the point where you do it unconsciously or not even thinking about it, and therefore it is kind of part of your identity. Well, dissociation is exactly the same thing. At one point, it was very helpful to you, but because you engaged with it long enough. And here's the thing. The longer you've been living with gender dysphoria, the more likely the dissociation is going to continue post-transition. Not for everybody, but the chances are higher. There's correlation with the longer you've been living with gender dysphoria, because there's correlation between how long you've been utilizing this defense versus what a limited amount of time you may have spent with it. So the longer you utilize dissociation as a way to protect yourself, the more likely you're going to be accustomed to it, and the more likely you're going to bring it with you post-transition, which is a problem. And a lot of times it becomes very problematic because post-transition, what you really want to do is start to connect to yourself. Edison, in one of the video interviews that I did with Edison Rose, Edison talked about this. Edison brought up how they were dissociating and how now they're trying very hard to connect to their bodies. They need to find a way to reconnect to their body, to feel grounded. So they do meditations, they practice self-care because they're trying to connect to their body. And this is one of the things about this defense and one of the biggest problems, because post-transition, you are, at least some of you, depending on what part of transition you went through, at least majority of you, I would say, would have modified some aspects about themselves. Whether you modified your body physically, surgically, medically, or whether you modified your body just by getting in a different shape, or maybe you modified how you express yourself, or how you, how you navigate yourself through the world. And as a result, you therefore, by modifying that, you also modified how you see yourself and how you relate to yourself. Well, especially for those who have modified their bodies, for those of you who modified your bodies, it becomes especially important because now you want to connect to this new body. You want to connect to the parts of you that feel congruent. You want to understand and learn more about those body parts and your overall holistic sense of self and your overall whole body. And if you're dissociating, it's going to make it very difficult for you to connect to yourself. You're just going to have a hard time being present with yourself, being grounded. So this is why dissociation post-transition is challenging, and it creates this potential problems because you're still not present, and you need to be present because you want to be living your life. You don't want to be operating your life on autopilot. So if you are experiencing dissociation as a post-transition defense, it is very important to recognize you're doing it. The best way to recognize you may be engaging in this defense is when you have people around you telling you that you're not being present with them, telling you that you're acting like you're spaced out, or telling you that they don't feel like you're around. They feel as if you're there, but you're not really there. If you're in a relationship, your partners are most likely will be able to be really good judge of that, whether you're being present or not. If you're not in a relationship, ask people around you, how do you come across to them? Do you come across to them as spaced out? Do you come across to them as if you're really not present? Pay attention to yourself. Are you on a daily basis feel like you're numbing your feelings and feel like you're numbing your emotions? Remember, what you used to engage in and doing prior to transition should not be something we need to be dealing with or carrying into the present now, because now you need to spend time reconnecting to yourself. Now I want you to spend time living your life and enjoying your life, not being displaced or detached from your body. That is something you may have done when you had severe gender dysphoria. Right now, there's no need for that. Right now, the opposite is needed for you to connect to yourself. One of the really best ways to connect to your body and to start feeling more grounded if you're dissociating post-transition is to do mindfulness exercises, is to do some form of mindfulness, some form of meditation, some form of relaxation, some form of physical, maybe even physical activities that really grounds you. Go sit underneath of a tree. Really connect yourself to the earth. Physically exercise to get yourself in touch with the connection of your body and endurance of your body. Other physical activities may include a lot of other things. Going for a walk. All of kind of things out there. If you just look up mindfulness and grounding exercises, all you have to do is just Google them and they come up. But it's really important for you to start connecting to yourself. If you're feeling yourself post-transition dissociating to the point where you're emotionally numb, journaling is going to be crucial to you. Start journaling your feelings. Start journaling how you feel. Start journaling why you feel like you're having an absence of feelings. In other words, what you want to do is you want to start connecting to the inner self, this part of self that has been kind of I was going to say the word dead, but I don't want to say dead because a lot of you don't feel like you're dead. But there's part of you that has been asleep. Oh, that's a better word. Asleep for so long. And now, even though you transitioned and you feel more congruent, remember, that does not mean that psychically that self has woken up. What means is that physically you have achieved congruency that you were seeking. But internally, there's still work needs to be done, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's a connection that's needed. So if you're finding yourself dissociating post-transition, I'm really, really sorry you guys are feeling it, because dissociation post-transition, it can just feel almost as if, for some of you, it's going to be a big question mark. And the question mark is going to be this. Why am I still dissociating? Does that mean the transition didn't work? Does it mean that I shouldn't have transitioned? Does it mean that I'm still need to do some steps to transition? So it's going to play all of these mind games with you. It's going to create all of this what-if scenarios that you need to go to, because dissociation is a lot of times simply a habituated way of being that you have learned when you were dealing with severe gender dysphoria, and that is now still habituated, and now to the point where you just do it automatically, you engage in it without thinking about it. So comment below, let me know if you are post-transition, again, whatever that is for you, if you have achieved congruency you were seeking, and if you still find yourself dissociating. Share below what helps you to stay grounded, what helps you to connect to yourself, what are some of the mindfulness and meditation exercises you may be doing. Share below, share with everybody else. I'd love to hear from all of you, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.